Alright, time to kick off the 1675 turn. And it started off with a lot of monarch survival rolls. First thing, this is the turn Cromwell was due to die. Well, a royalist coup occurred. The rules under the Risto events don't handle this terribly well. It's not clear what should happen in the case of a royalist coup while the Civil War is still going on. I just made the assumption that the Civil War would collapse. I mean, it only makes sense. And the English ended up with, now they've got a dynastic crisis and a very, very young child on the throne, but a reasonably good leader. 8 diplomacy, 6 military, okay, but whatever. We also had 2 other monarchs croak, though. In this case, both Spain and the Netherlands. Now, Spain got an amazingly good leader, but they lost that military leader, and they've got a child on the throne now, so they can't put him as a military leader. And the Dutch got also a good military and diplomatic leader, who probably is actually William of Orange over here, but because of the way the game handles things, he's not directly linked to the counter in any clear sort of way. So it would be possible to bring a new stadholder counter in place to replace, well, not to replace, but in addition to William of Orange. And if William of Orange dies in battle, it doesn't affect that, which is all kind of a little disturbing to me. Okay, beyond that, we had a lot of gold mine dry-up events. One hit England, which got rid of their Welsh mine. One hit the Netherlands, who don't have a gold mine. I remember them having one in one game. It was kind of funny, kind of like the English having one. But what these do is they trigger off a gold mine depletion in the New World. Well, on the rest of the world map, because it could be in Russia as well. And the mechanism for that before 1665 is you roll for each mine, starting with the Potosi silver mine, then going to Tenochtitlan, then going to the person who has the most mines, who will again probably be Spain, and onward until every mine's been checked or one's failed. The wording for the rule after 1665 isn't terribly clearly handled. There's this parenthetically or 2 or more after 1665, but the way it's actually placed, it's placed on the die roll rather than the number of mines. I think it's the number of mines. I think you roll for every mine, and on a 1 it's destroyed. Anyway, we had 2 of these events, so there were a lot of die rolls for mines, but none of them died. So all the gold mines are still producing. Beyond that, war in India. Now, interestingly, this would wipe out Portuguese colony or trading posts and colonies, but Malabar, Mysore, and Hyderabad are excluded from it. When you look through the whole thing, everything else is affected. So these are all damaged in the sense that they can't produce income this turn, but they're not reduced. Now this one over here in Malabar would have had a chance of just being wiped out, which would have been kind of cool for the Brits, because otherwise they have to do something about Portugal in order to get their monopoly in India that they want to get. They also have to do something about the Dutch, and these aren't their main concerns right now. The French are. Otherwise, French got an agricultural crisis again. These events are totally random. The fact they had one last turn doesn't affect the chances of one this turn, unlike things like dynastic inheritances, which can increase. Oh, the Turks had a new ruler. They were the other person. Yeah, we had 4 out of 6 countries had a new ruler. They ended up with a kind of crappy guy. Good administration again, but there's problems with that, and kind of bad in everything else. And that's increased the instability issue. Having a good administration at any time during the era causes a problem. So we might start seeing Turkish rulers shuffling on and off as they're murdering each other, etc. The final one is almost meaningless. It's the creation of the Kingdom of Prussia. The only real effect of this, I was trying to think, there's a special set of rules if the German Empire has been created. They're no longer considered part of the HRE, which means Austria can't just walk through them anymore. Not that there's a lot of Prussian territory. They also have the ability to, remember, they have the ability to walk through their own territory, or through the Holy Roman Empire territory, because of the Berg inheritance. So actually the Prussians have sort of more power than the Austrians in some ways now. Not really. They can't walk through Austrian territory. But the real effect of this is that Prussian troops from now on are considered veterans. This is kind of weird because it really, I don't know how much it really makes sense to give the Prussian troops any kind of bonus. Not before Frederick's father. His father was really the deviser of, not the kingdom, the military tradition in Prussia. But this puts them on equal footing with Sweden, actually, as one of the two countries, well, and the Knights, as one of the few countries that have always elite units, or veteran units. And that looks like it's about it. So we're going to be walking into the diplomacy phase. There's not a lot to happen. England. England's the loose wheel now. England can get itself involved, say, in a war with France. And it might be an appealing idea. It won't be part of the Spanish War. Although they could arrange that, but they have no desire. But they can try to press their own claims against France at the same time. And they might just do that. They don't have a casus belli, though, against France, and that's painful. But they have a lot of income, and they have some real desires to bring the French down. France is already reeling. This reduction in their income, along with the loss of good leaders and everything else, it looked like they were kind of on the verge of losing this war. If England throws their weight into it, I think it's pretty much all over, but we'll see. All right. Okay, for diplomacy, England, first of all, gave both the Dutch and the Spanish $50. It was harder to convince them, but they were convinced to enter into their own war with France. They made the declaration of war. That's a big 10 victory points that they lose, plus the stability. They kind of wanted to build up an army, see what happens, etc., but the Dutch and the Spanish said, look, this is the time you want to come in. There may be a peace next turn. You want to get your advantage now and keep plowing because France is in real trouble. And they agreed with the argument. That brought in a bunch of miners. Well, maybe not that many. A bunch came in, not because of that. All right, so the English brought the Danes in, and the French brought the Scots in. And in both cases, I think that's simply expeditionary corps, which means you can't take that miner out. You can't go in and destroy it, but they can be a problem for you. So, for example, Danish Expeditionary Corps, basically one stack, is able to move into France and to deal with French issues. Or I could land it here and have it try to hold off the Scots, who can do the same kind of thing with England, while I use the English troops for valuable operations. Since I don't really expect to take anything from France in continental Europe, I'm probably going to not really worry too much about that, although I may make a little raid into, say, Brittany or something, just as a bonus. But the main effort is going to be here in North America. That's where the English want to make their gains, and that's very appealing to them. The other countries, though, came in off of the chart, where both Spain, just Spain, brought in actually a couple new countries. Some that they had increased their diplomacy on, for example, Savoy, in fact that might be the only example, they brought completely into the war, and that's going to be kind of this powerful effect, which could end up just being wiped out because it's in the war. Others, let's see. Yeah, Expeditionary Corps level for Bavaria with good old Max Emanuel here. Adding a leader is always good, even if it's not a great leader. I think they have enough leaders total. You might start seeing Habsburg leaders leading Spanish armies and stuff like that, just because I need the extra forces. Now also was brought in is Tuscany, which is a pretty weak thing to bring in. It was only, even though it could be brought completely into the war, it's up here in entry in war. I'm only bringing it in as an expeditionary corps because I don't want to risk Tuscany surrendering. But that extra corps is going to help just push this war a little bit further. Kind of like the French used Cologne. Hey, they got to use it once. Now it doesn't really serve any purpose, and it can't come into the war in any sense. But it's kind of a cool situation. And then for doing diplomacy on the miners, well, the Spanish and Dutch took their extra money and went and spent it immediately. The Dutch spent theirs picking up an ally in the Palatinate, and that's just a long-term good thing for them. It's not only in position against France, but it's close enough to the Dutch territories that it can be very helpful. And on the other side of things, the Spanish improved some of their Italian. They tried on Parma, which worked, and the papacy, which didn't. Papacy no longer gives cash, but Spanish are interested in the Italian miners. They were also vaguely interested in picking up Saxony, but except for an anti-Prussian, anti-Dutch, something like that, Saxony is not terribly helpful to anyone. It really is so deep in the heart of Germany that you need to have something interesting going to happen in Germany. And the only interesting thing that's liable to happen there right now is a slight Prussian distraction to the Austrians is possible in the event of a Dutch war. It's just not enough to do it. The French still too worried about their money to do anything. They kind of would like to bring, say, Poland into this, but yeah, I don't know. Spending $50 is unlikely to do anything. $100, that's a lot of money at this point. Anyway, the only people who can really do that, the only person who can really do that without feeling any pain is England. And England threw their $100 at the Dutch and the Spanish to give them a little hand up. Both of those countries are in trouble, though. The Dutch have to rebuild their entire army. It may not be that big a deal in a sense, because there's a couple armies here facing the French and actually gaining ground on them. So, maybe the Dutch army isn't the most important one to be operating right now. We'll see. All right, as a quick note, the economies have tanked. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting, I haven't been mentioning it because it happens at the end of the turn, and I always forget, but the inflation rate has dropped way down to 20%. This happens just through random event things, and I think it may have happened this time one country got it. Basically, the question is, how many times do you roll the event that causes deflation versus how many times does the inflation roll end up above a 7, which 8, 9, 10, 3 out of 10 chance. And early in the game, the inflation shot right up. Later, it's been kind of getting this deflation, decreasing the amount of effect that the Spanish gold has on it. I suspect we'll see inflation again because the system's kind of rigged to cause it to go up. But it's kind of funny to see it having shot way up and now coming down significantly. It's especially interesting. Last turn it was here where everybody was paying 20%. Now it's 20 and 10. That's a big difference. So it kind of fluctuates how much gold is going to be a problem to haul in. Not that you'd make your long-term decisions on that. You make your long-term decisions on it's going to go up, and I'm going to be paying a premium, and I want to make sure that my gold is worth taking, because otherwise saving money becomes hard between rounds. All right, I shouldn't keep talking, except that I somehow failed to manage to talk about what I wanted to, which was the income drop. The only person who's making money compared to last turn is Russia. they made a buck more. But everyone else, the English are down to 733, which isn't too bad, but they were up in the 800s. A lot of the, their aspect is largely the drop here, and then losing some foreign trade, but also the prices in trade have been becoming depressed. Over here, due to the large quantity of commodities that were being produced, especially like the furs, which flipped over. Well, they made their way into where they can be minus, so they're pushing the price back down. Once you get past a certain point on this track, it is more likely to decrease prices. But the worst here, France is down to 412, Spain is at 257, the Dutch at 394, which isn't too bad for them. Turkey's doing pretty well, actually, but they still took a decrease, mainly because, the stability's dropping, and France is really hit, though, because of all the trade that they're being refused from the English, the Spanish, the Dutch, the Habsburgs. They're making almost nothing in foreign trade at this point. Just a brief moment here in the administrative phase. Russia's taking out an exceptional tax. Now, this is an action which only really works well for the smaller countries because of the way it's calculated. You drop a point of stability, and again, stability improvement is the same for a large country as a small country, which is also kind of a mistake, and it doesn't carry over into the computer game at all. But you add your leader's administrative ability and 3 times the stability and roll a die, and that's how much money you get kind of in tens. They got, I don't remember, $160 or something like that. That's peanuts, to one of the monster countries. Now, granted, sometimes this little extra tax is enough to push you over the edge, but it feels kind of funny that a huge country can only raise the same exceptional taxes that, say, Russia with its very, very few and very poor provinces can do. Just an odd feeling to the game. Anyway. Okay, after a hell of a long delay, I pretty much spent the whole Labor Day weekend not playing, finding other things to try to escape from this in a lot of ways. I finished the economic and admin phase, and yeah, I'm not sure. Wow. If I keep feeling this way, I don't know if I can finish. But, anyway. Some new troops showed up, no question there. The English have their only leader over in the Americas. They're able to do that because he has a little marker for that. That's where their focus is. Mainly in Europe, they're planning on just trying to stave off the Scots. But they've got to be careful. They can't combine their 2 armies, or they've got to recall their leader. There were no mercenaries available, so they didn't have any advantages there. You see Savoy showing up with an army. The French army needed a little bit of refurbishment, a few extra troops and everything. But beyond that, they were pretty healthy. One problem we have here is Astrakhan. The fortification's up to level 4. It's starting to get really iffy whether Russia can take that. Boy, are they going to feel pretty bad if they can't. Seeing English shipping beginning to expand over here, and here they have new monopolies. Looks like they're going to hold on to their Atlantic Trade Center, but there's a lot of competition over who's going to end up with the Mediterranean one. I think it may be the Dutch at this point. It's hard to tell. Venice may still have the edge. I haven't looked. We'll see how that falls after this turn, because there's the potential for that being raided, etc. A lot of the other troops are just really expeditionary corps, etc. Got some new Hanover troops. Obviously, Montecuccoli has a new army, but not a very good one. He didn't get a good roll there. But he's got Max Emanuel to back him up with another army, so it's enough to actually take on the French stuff down here in Milan. And once one of those armies takes enough losses, they can push the Savoyan army in as well. So there's some real hope for change happening up in Italy. Spanish built a lot of extra troops, but without their king on the board, they don't have many people to lead. In fact, they've got this army back here, which is leaderless. The French have one heck of a good leader in Frontenac here. He's a 466 -1. But he's only got a couple of detachments that they built there. They didn't want to build a whole army. That could end up being a disadvantage, especially with the English involved. The English didn't build up any ships, technology-wise. Everybody's kind of rushing to get to the war of movement. Nobody's terribly interested in passing the vessel naval technology limit because the French have no navy. And had they built one, well, the Dutch, the English, and even, well, not so much the Spanish, the Danes, Genoa, Venice, these countries all have enough of a navy to really finish off whatever France built. So they don't feel like they can defend themselves navally at all. And they've lost most of their trading posts over here. They've got these left, and they, I think, may have established a new one there. Anyway, I'm going to load this up because, well, it's taken up a lot of it already.